Okie dokie then. So, Kaldheim, Kaldheim, Kaldheim. Let us do this. Cool, cool, cool. Hey, Rye, lovely to see you. Hopefully you're doing very, very well today. And things are going okay for you. If you haven't seen anything from this set so far, it's pretty exciting. Hopefully you're doing well. Hey, hey, hey. I like the vibe. It's all Viking white. Oh my god. Okay, I see how it is. It's all white. It's all Vikings. It's all metal. It's all Norse mythology. It's very much my jam. I'm kind of on board with a lot of the themes so far, and looking forward to just going through these cards and seeing what's up. So we're starting off here with one that is certainly an interesting piece of kit. Armed and Armoured here. 2-mana instant speed card, which is certainly a relevant piece of text on a card like this. Vehicles you control become artifact creatures until the end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control, attach any number of equipment you control to it. That is a lot of very unique effects stapled onto a card like this. Not going to be every card, right? Basically, things that are only going to see limited play, I'll kind of glance over, move on to the next one. But I'm going to go through the card list, and I'm pretty sure that the things that are limited fodder will kind of just churn through pretty quickly. This thing is really... It grabbed my attention, mainly because there are a couple of decent vehicles in this set, and people just seem to have not noticed that it's an instant. Turning on your vehicle's instant speed and just kind of blocking stuff is a pretty relevant line of text. There's a couple of really powerful dwarves in Historic as well. People forget you get Toolcraft Exemplar as a dwarf in that format too. As I say, this is some very unique effects, and it does them all at instant speed for 2 mana. It's not going to be a format-defining card, I don't think, but this is the kind of card that could be good somewhere. Like, it's very efficient at the thing it does, so if there's a deck that cares about that thing, probably the place for this card, I would think. I think Armed and Armoured is a bit of a sleeper uncommon, and probably not as bad as people think it is. Axid Braggart, this is not a card I think is particularly constructed playable, so not going to worry about it too much. Bashir Warrior, same kind of thing, really. Not worried about this. We'll look at Battlefield Raptor real quick. I know it seems kind of weird to talk about a common in some detail, but this is a relevant printing, I think. Like, Bird is not a relevant creature type, but it wasn't that long ago that the white aggro decks were really happy to have, like, Healer's Hawk. Healer's Hawk was a card that made it in standard white aggro a little while ago. So a 1-2 with flying and first strike, it's not a bad rate on a white 1-drop. This could definitely see some constructed play, I think. I think it's certainly a card that is worth noting. Best Gift Shieldmate. Yeah, this is just bear with upside, nothing particularly special there. Bounding Gold. Enchanted permanent, can't attack, block, or crew vehicles, and its activated abilities can't be active. So this is just your most recent... Oh my god, he's so unhappy with with the white cards. Oh my god. This is the pacifism of the set, right? It's nothing particularly special. If vehicles are a massive issue, then I'm glad there is a white way of dealing with those things. Clarion Spirit seems like a really cool card. We'll take a look at this one real quick. Let's open you up. Cool. So Clarion Spirit here is a 2-mana spirit, which is a very relevant creature type, because spirits are close to being playable in Historic as things stand. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So it is just an upside bear, but it's a pretty darn good upside bear. Like, spirits already kind of care about cards like this, and they also play just tons of cheap spells. It's very easy for spirits, like, unfortunately you're missing Mausoleum Wanderer, Selfless Spirit, some of the really good ones from Shadows over Innistrad, but you got a chunk of 1-drops, and obviously you're a Collected Company deck, so that second spell on each turn thing is achievable by, flashing in a creature. Spell Queller's a pretty big one too, I had forgotten about that. But yeah, just like flashing in a creature, casting a company, or just flashing in 2 creatures, like, this is like, very much like Worthy Knight. And I think if anyone played against Knights in Standard, you'll know that Worthy Knight itself was actually a pretty solid card, even though the deck itself kind of wasn't there. And this is how I feel about Clarion Spirit, really. If the deck is there, this is probably pretty good in it, depending on how many creatures it's allowed to play, how much interaction it has to play, stuff like that. But it's an effective rate for what is effectively a self-enabling token generator. I like this. I think this card is pretty cool, and certainly worth paying some attention to. I like it a lot. Cool. This Code Spell Cleric is... Actually, yeah, we'll talk about this too, because this is a recurring like set of words in this set from what I understand so far. White Spirit's not flying is just annoying. I can agree with that. They should probably be flying. Probably. Code Spell Cleric, yeah, so this is a 1-1 with Vigilance, which is super unimpressive, but when it enters the battlefield, if it was the second spell you cast this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature. So you'll see there is some synergy here for, like, you know, the second spell you've cast each turn, and that's a real relevant line of text on Savannah Lions, which is essentially what this is, if you're casting it on turn 2. Again, this is an interesting tool for the white aggro decks. You'll see as we go through this set, there is a lot of 1-drops, 2-drops for white that can definitely be played in some shells, and like curving into like going like 1-drop into 1-drop this on turn 2. That's a heck of a lot of damage, especially if it's like Ancestral Spirits or the other spirit enabling 1-drop in this set, or even just other things that care about the second spell each turn. More importantly, a card like this is so cheap with a relevant line of text about second spells each turn, meaning it cares about being the second spell you cast, but it can also just be the first one you cast to enable the rest of your payoffs. So if the whole second spell deck has any legs, this card's definitely in it. I have no doubt about that. Card's really, really solid for that archetype, for lack of a better word. Divine Gambit here. I'm not going to bring this one up full size. Basically, it's a 2-mana sorcery. Exiles artifact, creature, or enchantment your opponent controls, and let's put permanent into their hand onto the battlefield. Yeah, we're done. Talk about a gamble. Look, while Ugin the Spirit Dragon is legal, this card is going to see 0 play in any format whatsoever, because fuck letting that happen to you. That sounds truly awful. Like, I'm so surprised that a card that has the words exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment on it is so bad. But I just can't see a world where this is even remotely acceptable. Like, I just can't. This next one, this card is hot. We're going to spend some time talking about Doomscar. It's double white, yeah, obviously. Why wouldn't it be? It's just what white cards do. Doomscar here, this is, I think, honestly, the second best Wrath ever printed. I think this card is bananas. So, base rate, 5 mana, destroy all creatures, Like, Fumigate saw play, so did Cleansing Nova. Like, 5 mana sweeper isn't the end of the world, but it's not why you're playing this card. The fact you can foretell this thing for 3 mana is disgusting. Having access to a sweeper on turn 3, normally not going to be that big of a deal, but the existence of this card is where the power is. You'll find that you very rarely foretell this on turn 2 and cast it on turn 3. It'll happen sometimes when your opponent overextends, but what's first of this is second. I would say, for me, it's probably Terminus, but there's some discussion. Maybe Supreme Verdict is better than this. Wrath of God for, you know, nostalgia maybe, but it's probably worse than this as an actual card. Yeah, so as I was saying, for me, the power of this card, a lot of the power of this card is Verdict might be one. Like, Verdict is, I'm not sure Verdict is better than this. I think Terminus is unique enough, but yeah, we can have debates. You reckon Wrath is better than this? That's interesting. I can see the disagreement. I can understand the disagreement. But again, as I was trying to say, right, like for me, the power of this card and what makes it better than a straight up Wrath of God is not the card itself. It's the fact it exists. You're going to be forcing your aggro players to play off curve every single time you foretell a card on turn 2. And now, a large part of that power comes down to how many other playable foretell cards there are. And I think there's a number that are actually like pretty reasonable with the foretell keyword. There's not a lot to do on 2 mana in standard right now that's particularly impactful. So you don't have to have this card in your hand. But if you're playing against the aggro players and you foretell a card on turn 2, they now have to play around a sweeper as best they can for the rest of the game. And that is absurdly powerful. That's not the card itself doing that, but that actual flexibility and just like mind games potential of this card is absurd. Hey Dono, we're doing good. We're on to a set review today so far, and looking through Kaldheim properly in full for the first time. Hopefully you're doing great as well. Yeah, this card is nuts. Okay, so right, I see your point. I do definitely see your point. But if a card is only ever worse on exactly turn 4, does that make it a worse card? I don't think so. This card's absurd, don't I? I think it's really, really good. I think there's an argument to be made, and like a healthy discussion is on any late game turn. I don't think it matters. Like on turn 4 exactly, it is worse. On turn 5, it's basically the same card. Like you're paying for a sweeper at that point. I don't think it ever really matters too much. Yeah, but like on turn 5, how often am I using the mana that's left over if it's Wrath of God instead of Doomscar? I think that's the question, right? If you're building a deck with Ops in it, or, you know, as you say, if you're building a deck with Opt, or that cycles Censor, or can do things with that 1 mana, then this card is going to be worse for that deck. But I think as a general rule, applicably, it is a better card on every turn except for turn 4, in a vacuum, if that makes sense. I think it's really good. I firmly believe you're not casting this on turn 3 very often. Like, there will be situations when you do, your opponent's got multiple Burning Tree Emissaries, cool, cast it on turn 3, whatever. But the fact it is available from turn 3 is where the power is, because foretelling your card draw spell on turn 2 not only means you're casting a card draw spell on turn 3, it means your opponent didn't cast their best creature onto the board out of fear of Doomscar. And that's what I like. I think this card is going to be really fun for those kind of mind games and those kind of shenanigans. And I'm so on board for that. I think it's really, really sweet. Good design. I like it. Do you think it can revive Blue-White Yorion in Standard? I'm not sure if this card itself revives Blue-White Yorion, but that deck does get a lot of tools, and we'll happily talk through them as we go. Doomscar Oracle here. Yeah, this is limited filler. We're not going to be particularly worried about this. I'm going to take a second to talk about Giant Ox. And not only because the name is hilarious, but because this is, again, a very unique... I disagree, John Ramos. I think Yorion is very good and will continue to be very good. Get out of here. This card is so very unique. Not because it's good. I don't think it's good. Like, sure, the Arcades deck probably plays it because it's really funny. But I am going to lose to this thing so many times when it crews the vehicle from Kaladesh in Historic. People are going to cast the 7-11 on turn 1, cast this thing on turn 2, and I am going to die. And I would like that to be on the record. So, there you go. Okay, this next one is good. I think this card is very much worth talking about, so let's take a look at Glorious Protector together. And yes, you're building it, I can believe that. Glorious Protector here is a 4-mana flash 3/4. Now that's a rate that we've seen on an Angel before that saw a lot of standard play. I thought it was in Historic. Is the 7-11 not in Historic? If it's not, then I guess I'm not going to die to it, but hey. It is. Good. I thought so. I wasn't entirely sure. So yeah, 3/4 flash flyer. Relevant line of text. Like it. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until it leaves the battlefield. And this card also has Foretell. Now this thing is a package. Like, this card does so much. So again, it plays very well with Doomscar and other Foretell cards like we've said before, because you can just Foretell this on turn 2 and cast it on turn 3. And your opponent had to play around a sweeper, because they had to play around it. They couldn't afford not to. But in most other worlds, this is just a variation of Restoration Angel. You get to flash this thing in, if it's Foretelled, you can flash it in as a blocker. Yes, you can. Absolutely. You can also just protect yourself from a Wrath. If you flash this thing in response to a Wrath of God, exile all your creatures, it then dies and all your creatures come back, and you basically count with the Wrath of God. If you flicker this with Yorion, there's a lot of shenanigans to be going on with Glorious Protector. I'm not entirely sure how you stack those into the battlefield triggers, because that's a lot of triggers. I am not 100% sure how you're meant to stack those things, but you can definitely do some funky stuff there. I'm not going to try and figure it out. I'm going to let Arena do it. I'm going to flicker it with Arena, And, yeah, it's kind of like a Boros charm in the face of a Wrath, exactly. But the beauty is you can kind of smoke screen it in with other Foretell spells in your exile zone. The last thing that's super relevant about this card is that it's an angel. And as you'll see as we go on over the course of the rest of this set review, there are a lot of really good angels in this set. There's a lot of good angel-based payoffs. So this card being an angel, also a relevant line of text. It being a cleric, relevant line of text for those party decks that might come into existence. Because cleric is a valid creature type for your party. This card kind of does a bit of everything. I think it's really cool. It'll be interesting to see whether or not it finds a home. That you need some stuff that plays well with its effects when you're not playing into a sweeper, I think. Or you know, more foretell spells in your deck to kind of get that mystique value from it. But I think it's really good. I think it's really powerful, and if there is a deck that wants it, it will be very, very good in that shell. I like it a lot. Glorious Protector is a very sweet card. Okie dokie. God's Hall Guardian, not a card I've seen. This is just limited filler. We're not worried about this. Gold Champion, also limited filler. Not going to worry about that particularly too much. We'll go on to Halvar, God of Battle. So if you're not taking a look at this set at all so far, you won't know there's necessarily tons of gods in this set. They're not like traditional gods. Most of the gods we've seen before this have had some variation of indestructible and all kinds of wonderful jazz like that. These do not. They in fact have two sides for the most part, which means I'll show you the other side of Halvar in just a second as we're discussing him. But that gives you that kind of flexibility and removes the downside of drawing a legendary creature. It's not in Kaladesh Remastered. Okay, well that's good to know. I'm sure there are other vehicles like Sky Sovereign that will kill me equally quickly. So yeah, Halvar here, God of Battle. On the front side, 4 mana 4/4, passes the vanilla test, that's completely fine. Legendary creature God. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike. In general, equipment and the like is not particularly good. However, we've seen, courtesy of Embercleave, that giving creatures double strike is a rather relevant piece of text. At the beginning of your combat step, you can attach an aura or equipment you control to another target creature you control. Probably not the most relevant line of text, but it's going to come up sometimes if you have an Embercleave in play that you didn't want to spend 3 mana stapling onto something. Halvar's flexibility comes in the form of his other half, which we'll also show you here, in the form of Sword of the Realms. So the way these double-face cards work is very much like the ones from Zendikar Rising. You have to pick whichever side you want to play it on and just cast that half, which is really cool because it means that drawing your second copy of Halvar doesn't suck. Because if it's still in play, you have a sword, and if it's not in play, you have a second Halvar. Plays very similar to the champion mechanic from Legends of Runeterra for anyone who plays that game as well. But Sword of the Realms here, 2 mana piece of equipment on the backside, grants +2/+0 and Vigilance, and whenever equipped creature dies, you return it to its owner's hand with an equip cost of 2. I think this is a really solid piece of equipment. I imagine there'll be some more on the way, honestly, Ryan. I don't think we've seen the last of the modal lands, not by any stretch. Yeah, this is actually just a solid, a legitimately solid piece of equipment. Granting +2/+0 and Vigilance is fine for 2 mana. Equipping it for 2 mana is pretty solid. It obviously plays very well with Halvar if you draw 2 copies of it because you care about equipment at that point. The line of text I'm most interested in on this card is the second one down, however. I think whenever a equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand that's a heck of a piece of text. We haven't got very many effects like that, so it's kind of hard to... It's not quite like Batterskull, because you have to pay 3 mana to pick up Batterskull and, cast it again. But the fact I can staple this onto any creature and, not a germ is kind of relevant. If I cast Urion on turn... I know we keep coming back to Urion, but it's the first example I had in my head. If I cast Urion on turn 7, and I spend 2 mana equipping the sword to the Urion, how do you deal with that? It's a 6/5 with Vigilance, and if you kill it, I get myself another Urion, and the piece of equipment is still in play. So I just equip the Urion again. And I think that's what a fair few people are missing about the backside of this card, is that it doesn't really read when a equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand. It reads bounce their creature. Which there are a lot of creatures in Standard right now, and especially in Historic as well, that we know that bouncing them is not very good. It returns the creature. Returns the creature to your hand, not the piece of equipment. So the piece of equipment is still in play, which is pretty absurd. I think it's a line of text people just kind of glanced over. And it's entirely possible this card is like good enough on the backside that you're playing it for Sword of the Realms, and when you draw your second copy of Sword of the Realms, you're going to cast it as a Halvar, which, that seems pretty okay with me as well, in fairness. I like this card. I think people are underrating that ability to pseudo-protect your creatures with a card like this. If you've played any Historic recently, you'll know how annoying, like genuinely annoying, Kaya's Ghost Form is. That card is super annoying in the Auras deck, and this is very similar. Like super similar. In fact, the front side of Halvar actually plays pretty well with enchantments too, and might even find itself like a sideboard home in that Auras deck. We don't know. I like this card a lot. I think it's worth exploring, and we'll try and find some homes for it. I think it's pretty damn sweet. Most of the gods are. I'm pretty excited for most of the gods out of this set. Invoke the Divine finds itself getting a reprint here. If you're not familiar with this card, it is basically just artifact and enchantment removal that gains your life. It saw a reasonable bit of play last time it was in Standard. Wouldn't be surprised if it saw some again. Iron Verdict is limited filler. So is Kaya's Onslaught. Master Skeld, same thing. Next up then, let's take a look at Rally the Ranks. This is a card that's gotten a lot of attention. Like, a lot of people have been talking about this one. I think it's about time that we had a 2-mana Anthem back in the format. Rally the Ranks here, 2-mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a creature type of your choice, and creatures of that chosen type get +1/+1. We've not had a 2-mana Anthem in some time, but if you haven't had the pleasure of playing with one, they were quite good back in the day. I'm skeptical to say this is good enough because, unfortunately, stuff like Glorious Anthem out of M21 has just seen basically no play. But 3-mana and 2-mana are very different numbers, to be fair. And casting this on turn 2 after a 1-drop is pretty impactful. They've also pushed like a number of tribes in this set, and while I don't see this being like playable in Angels, like this might be good in like Abzan Elves. The Elves play a load of creatures and go very wide. Could be good in Spirits because you're so good at making so many tokens and going very wide and making bodies for the same reason. I don't know if this is good enough, but I'm excited to have a 2-mana like Anthem effect back in the format. Warriors is another good shout, yeah, absolutely. There's some support for them knocking around in this set as well. Even like maybe Dwarves. I don't think the Dwarf cards are particularly good, but the tribal synergies are being pushed, and I think in that situation, a card like this could be good. I would be very surprised if Giants wanted this one, right? But you never know. You never know. But it's cool. I like it. I'm very glad that it's back. And it'll be interesting to see whether this cuts it in 2021. I honestly don't know for sure. I know a lot of people are quite excited about it though, which is super sweet. Let's take a look at Raydan. This card has caused a lot of controversy, actually. People seem fairly split on Raydan and the backside, which I'll take a look at for you in just a second as well. We got a 2-mana 2/3 flyer with Vigilance. Yeah, pretty good rate. Snowlands your opponent controls enter the battlefield tapped. Yeah, I guess. It'll act as a discourager for people to just not play Snow Basics if they're looking for an excuse to not play Snow Basics, but I don't think it's good enough to actively punish you for playing Snow Basics. Non-creature spells your opponent casts with converted mana cost 4 or greater, cost 2 more to cast. Yeah, the front side of Raydan here I think is pretty damn reasonable. I think it's a fine hate bear. It's nothing particularly special. But I think this card is probably costed to move. I think Archon of Emeria saw some play in like Bant Company shells and stuff in Historic. And this card's very similar to that, and it targets other cards better than something like Archon does. I don't think it sucks. I don't think it's quite as good as some people would like it to be. But the backside is also a relevant piece of text. So we'll take a look at the backside of Raydan as well. You can play her equipment half here. Well, artifact half, I should say. The Protector's Shield. Archon was very good, exactly. Hate Bears are surprisingly relevant. They stack up pretty well when they're next to each other. I don't think you're going to be casting this half of this card very often, but it's interesting to have a card like this, I guess, available to you on the back of a card you're already playing. 4-mana artifact here basically says if a source your opponent controls would deal damage to you, it prevents one of that damage. And whenever you or another permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability, it gets countered unless they pay 1. Like, feel like aggro might enjoy holding the Wrath off until turn 6? Yeah, maybe. Like, that's the kind of thing, like, it plays a very Thalia-esque role, don't know? Where it's like, the aggro decks might just want it as a, I need to buy myself a little bit of time. Which, it might come up. It might very well come up. Yeah, I don't like the backside of this card very much. It's interesting that you can just have it stapled onto the back of a god. And be good against, like, Storm, I guess. Or, I guess, you know, anything that's going to target you with multiple burn spells or something. But you're not playing this card for this half, I think. Oh, Adam, I'm sorry, buddy. Okay, no worries, no worries. Take it easy. Make sure you're safe. Yeah, I don't mind the front half of Raydan, but the backside is a bit kind of whatever. Bit unimpressed by the backside of it. Cool. Next up, Resplendent Marshal. We got another card here that I think is very, very powerful. Let's take a look at it together, shall we? So yet another well-costed angel here. Also a warrior, another relevant creature type. Multiple things together there that kind of matter. This one, however, costs 3 mana, which we all know 3 mana. There's a card in Historic called Collected Company, so you should really be paying attention to anything that costs 3 or less. 3/3 flyer, it's a good rate, don't mind that at all. And whenever Resplendent Marshal enters the battlefield or dies, you may exile another creature card from your graveyard. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on every single creature you control other than it that shares a creature type with the exiled card. So this is going to be caring about Angel Tribal and Warrior Tribal. And it's an interesting little effect in those decks. You can pseudo-anthem your guys by bringing it into play. Obviously, it's a white card, so you could be flickering it around with Urian and the like as well to repeatedly grow stuff, even though growing stuff doesn't really play well with Urian, so probably not. Yeah, I think this is like a flexible little card. It cares about the tribe that you exile, sure. Like, I agree with you, Patch. Like, it does care about the card that you exile, and changelings are a very relevant part of that equation for sure. But I don't want to be playing an Angel Warrior in my deck that's tribal, if I'm not Angel or Warriors, for the most part. So, although you can do that, I find it hard to believe you're going to want to, for the most part. But I'd love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong about that. Really unique effect. I wonder if this will play like an Anthem effect. Like, it'll be a case of you cast it, and +1/+1 your tokens, or your team, and just, like, push through damage that way. Doesn't buff itself, that's true, that's true. I don't know, it's an interesting card, very unique in what it does. Not entirely... I guess exiling a changeling does just buff the team, regardless of whatever tribe you're in, or even if you're in a tribe at all. I guess if you're playing a large number of changelings, this might just be fine, even if you're not tribal. That might also be true. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting flexibility going on here. Not sold on it, but seems cool. Seems like it might have potential. Unique card to print, and I'm all on board with some more unique effects making their way into the format. Revitalize getting printed here. Sees play occasionally in Standard. Like, it's not great or anything, but it does see play occasionally. Righteous Valkyrie. This is a card that I also think is really quite good. There's some good white angel tools in this set, I think. Righteous Valkyrie here, 3 mana 2/4. That's a relevant body for some Eternal formats because it does dodge Lightning Bolt. Whenever another Angel or Cleric, again, both the creature types that it is, enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. Important to note, this card is not legendary, so you can gain 4 off a second copy of it, or stack multiples. And as long as you have at least 7 life more than your starting life total, creatures you control get +2/+2. That is creatures you control get +2/+2. So once you're at 27 life, this is a 3 mana 4/6 flyer, which is bananas. And it anthems everyone else. So the immediate home for this is the White Company deck in Historic, because it obviously plays very well with like Daxos and Heliod. And the important part is Heliod is still legal in Standard. I think Daxos is too, in fairness. Elysiad or Life's Bounty, they're all still legal in this format. This is a good card, man. +2/+2 to your entire team is a lot of power. And yeah, you could Coco into this, which seems kind of bonkers too, especially in that mono white splashing Coco deck in Historic. But the fact this card isn't legendary and the buffs can stack, you just like gain 4 copies from 4 life from drawing a second copy. Pridemate is not in Standard, sadly, but it is in Historic, so relevant piece of text over there. I like this card a lot. I think this card's very strong. Only a certain deck wants it. It's not going to be like an multi-format all-star or like meta-defining or anything. But the deck that wants it, oh boy, does it want it. Card is good. I am impressed. Okie dokie. Thanks, MTG bot. I appreciate that. Also, the 1-drop Angel Maker at 20. So I forgot about that card, to be fair. I did completely forget about the Angel Maker. Speaker of the Heavens, is that it? That's the one? So we've got Runeforge Champion here, another card that I think is worth talking about because it highlights some of the new cards in this set, the new subtype of enchantments called runes. Runeforge Champion here, when it enters the battlefield, searches your library or your graveyard for a rune. You reveal it and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library, and you can pay 1 colorless rather than pay the mana cost for runes you cast. So if you haven't seen the runes that are in this set, we're going to go over them at some point, but they're basically 2 mana enchantments that grant a keyword and draw you a card, for the most part. The keyword they grant depends on the color, but it tends to be like, you know, color relevant or color specific. Is a card like this good in that world? This has echoes of like Stoneforge Mystic, in the way that the play patterns you're going to play with it, but it's nowhere near that good by any stretch. You're not just putting Batterskull into play with this thing. Dwarf and Warrior, kind of relevant creature types, maybe. And I guess this reads 2 mana draw a card with any rune, really. You know, I think some of the runes are okay. The fact you can staple them onto equipment and stuff so they don't just go falling off of your creatures when your creatures die seems pretty good. They replace themselves immediately. This is kind of like a 4 mana draw too, if you look at it as being a case of cast the 2/3, draws a rune, cast the rune, draws another card. And he's like 4 mana 2/3, draw 2 cards good? Maybe? If you're playing a lot of runes, flickering this thing is relevant. But I don't think you're going to be playing too many runes in your deck with Runeforge Champion as well. I'm not sure. It's obviously a very unique effect. I agree that it feels a bit gimmicky. I think a lot of this card's playability will depend on whether or not the runes are more playable than we thought. As Padgeable says in the chat right now, you can enchant permanent with a rune. So sticking it on your Crawling Barrens or even the Snowland that's in this set, the other creature land, is pretty relevant because it doesn't fall off. They just get to stay on your creature land. So that's something. I do agree that it feels a bit gimmicky, but I think it depends largely on if the runes are better than we think they are. And the runes look like they might see some play with like Core Spirit Dancer and stuff in Historic. So you never know. Maybe. Okie dokie, what is up for us next? So the next card that was there was the Rune. Just to give you an example of what a Rune looks like. It is 2 mana here, draw a card, gives the permanent lifelink, and if it's a piece of equipment, it gives equipped creature has lifelink instead. With the green one, red is not good? Yeah, maybe. Search for Glory here. Interesting card. I'm going to go over it quickly. It's not massively interesting. 3 mana Snow Sorcery. Search your library for a Snow permanent, a legendary card, or a saga, and reveal it and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. You gain 1 life for every Snow mana you spend to cast it. I don't think this card is great, mainly because Idyllic Tutor was not particularly great either. 3 mana tutors are too expensive. They're just too expensive for their own good. This is fairly flexible though. Getting Snow permanent, legendary card, or saga is good, and I guess in a world that we see a deck come up kind of like the 9 lives combo in Historic, where you really care about certain permanents that meet those criteria, maybe it's a card that sees some play. I'm not entirely sure. Shepherd of the Cosmos down here, not massively relevant, not worried about this one. We're going to talk about Sigrid though. Sigrid here is very, very cool, and I think this card is honestly, the kind of thing that white should be looking for moving forward. It's kind of the benchmark. You're going to have to give me just a second, guys. I have a message I have to attend to. I'll keep talking while I am, but I'll be away from... okay, give me just a second, guys. I do apologise for the inconvenience. That needs to be dealt with. I'm very sorry. Yeah, just unfortunately a good friend having to go to hospital, so they're okay by the looks of it, but just obviously a bit of a jarring subject matter to accidentally catch out of the corner of your eye. So just had to make sure. So yeah, Sigrid here, God Favoured. 3 mana card again. Yeah, I think they're okay. They just seem to have had an injury at work, so I think they'll be all right. 3 mana card again, as we say, relevant with Collected Company. Even more so because this card itself has flash, and I'm a sucker for cards that you can smoke screen in with Collected Company, and just like, thank you, I appreciate that, Burn Rage. Yeah, so if you can smoke screen this in with Collected Company, other flash threats, I'm a sucker for that kind of card. It's why I love playing Venser in Soul Herder so much, because you can do the same thing in that kind of shell with like Ice Fang Quote and stuff in Modern. So this card is a flash 2/2 for 3 mana with First Strike and protection from God creatures. I think that protection from God creature thing might be a more relevant line of text than we originally thought it was going to be when this card was spoiled. Mainly because there are some good gods in this set. We've seen 1 or 2 already, but there's plenty more to come. Might very well be a relevant line of text. First Strike, always a good keyword. The most important part of this card, however, when it enters the battlefield, you exile up to 1 target attacking or blocking creature until it leaves the battlefield. Banish of Priest effects are always good. Cocoing them is even better. Flashing them in, just pretty great. To me, the ultimate blowout with this is going to be against like the aggro shells, where you can flash it in, eat a creature, and then block another one with your first striking 2/2, and just like, whew, that's a lot of value. That is a lot of value. Like, I can see myself punking people's Skyclave Apparitions out with this kind of card. I think this card's good, man. Maybe not in Standard straight away. It's the kind of card that looks a bit awful in the face of a Lovestruck Beast. But I think it's good. I think that the text is powerful. What it's doing is powerful. It is a warrior, which we've established to be, a relevant piece of information going forward. So certainly don't hate this one. I think it could find itself a nice home somewhere. Where that home is, not sure. Really not sure just yet. But really, really cool little card. Cool. So Spectral Steel here. Not a card I think is particularly relevant, but is definitely kind of powerful. It's a 2 mana enchantment that gives +2/+2, and you can pick it up from your graveyard while also returning other auras or equipments to your hand. That, you know what? That's actually better than I thought it was. Let's read that again real quick. Spectral Steel here, so aura. 2 mana aura gives +2/+2. That's not standard playable by any stretch, but it's not a bad rate. And you can exile it from your graveyard to return another aura or equipment from your graveyard to your hand. I think... Is there going to be any aura or equipment that is likely to be in my graveyard that I would really want back? Like, you can always be like, oh my god, it lets you pick up Embercleaves that got killed, but if your Embercleave got killed, your opponent's probably already dead. In Historic, yes. What are you thinking of? Because I am not entirely sure. Like, it's a very unique effect. It seems like it's kind of reasonably powerful. I'm just not entirely sure where it would fit. I guess that's kind of my consideration. I think it's a really sweet little card. Very unique in what it does, but I don't know where I want the effect. It's definitely priced to move, though. Like, it's 2 mana on either side. Yeah, but I'm not sure which aura in the Auras deck I want back in my hand badly enough to spend 2 mana and exile a bad card that I had to put in my deck to do it. I think it's cool. It's a very unique little card, but again, it's the kind of thing that depends... Its playability will depend completely on if there is a target for it that you want, I think. This is an interesting common, but probably not going to see massive play. Starnheim Aspirin here is a cool little card, but we're not going to waste too much time on it. Basically, 3 mana 2/2 that makes Angels cost 2 less. Most of the time, the Angels you're going to want to play are going to be cost to cast anyway. So probably not a massively relevant thing. Picking up Maya's Graspable Dev, I guess. Yeah, maybe. Starnheim Courser here, again, 3 mana cost reduction effect. Not massively powerful, but pretty interesting. Starnheim Unleashed, however, this is a card that I think is being slept on just a little bit. Not massively, it's not broken, you haven't missed anything, but I think people are sleeping on it just a smidge, like just a little bit. 4 mana sorcery here that creates a 4 mana white angel warrior creature with flying and vigilance. If this spell was foretold, you may create X of those tokens instead. And the foretell cost is XX white. So, of course, the immediate comparisons people draw is to Entreat the Angels, is it? Yeah, Entreat the Angels, the Avacyn Restored Miracle card. The kind of comparisons that people draw straight away. Rai doing the same thing, blue-white control finisher, like maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Like I can see that kind of feasibility. But I think even on like a base rate, this card is just fine. Like 4 mana 4/4 flying vigilant creature is not bad. That's on rate. We've already established that both Angel and Warrior are relevant creature types, for sure. They can definitely come up and do relevant things in archetypes that care about that kind of thing. But again, I'm more interested in Foretell. I think the ability to Foretell this card on turn 2, make your opponent have to play around sweepers and stuff, is super powerful. And as you'll see later on, there's also a blue card that lets you Foretell at instant speed, which makes it even more like playable in a control shell, kind of like we're saying. I think just on the base rate, this card is fine. Casting a 4 mana 4/4 flying vigilance token is okay. I don't mind that at all. And it's just that with upside. Format defining, probably not, but playable, definitely. I think this card is definitely a card you should be thinking about, especially if you're particularly picky about Angels or Warriors. I have no idea, right? That's a very good question, actually. Very, very good question. I guess we'll find out during early access, I suppose. So yeah, Starnheim Unleashed. I like this one quite a lot. Very cool little card. This next card I'm really excited about. I think this is a fantastic little 1-drop. Not quite in the same league as Knight of the Ebon Legion, but pretty good. So Usher of the Fallen here, 1 white mana, Spirit Warrior. Again, relevant creature types. Spirit and Warrior, both for Historic and Standard. Boast for 2 mana, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. This card is great. Again, so Spirit Warrior, relevant creature types, but not only that, but this makes humans, which is certainly a relevant thing as well. This is like a fantastic 1-drop for Winota. Like Winota cares about this kind of card. It's a 1 mana 2/1 in white. It's just well statted. Yeah, human warriors, exactly. It's almost like if you're playing warrior tribal, it creates 2 creatures for you that you care about. And yeah, this is great because it's the kind of card that means your aggro deck can afford to not have a 2-drop in its opening hand. And making your average curve better in your aggro shell is good, man. That's something you want to do. If I can keep my hand that is 1-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, 3 lands on a 6, that's great because that means I'm casting Sight on turn 2, I'm doing something on turn 2. Your white 1-drops are all 2/1s now, unless you're playing the one we were talking about earlier on. Like this is good. Like this card is very powerful and very flexible. Like not busted, not like Knight of the Ebon Legion level 1-drop. It's not the next Wild Nacatl, but any deck that cares about creature types or is just like white aggressive, like you're gonna want this card. It's really good. Very, very powerful uncommon. I like it. It's good stuff. I definitely like it in Winota, to be honest. Seems like it could be very, very relevant there. Valkyrie Harbinger is not a card I think is particularly good. I know it's a rare, but 6 mana 4/5s have to be something else to be playable in this format, unfortunately. Most of this seems to be kind of filler. War Chanter Scald, nope, seems pretty much like limited filler. Looks like the rest of the white cards. Oh, okay, we'll go over Youthful Valkyrie last. This seems like it might... Oh, that's not the button I meant to press. This card might see some play. And then we'll move on to the blue stuff. Incoming blue cards. I know, right? Shocking. But yeah, useful Valkyrie here. Again, not a format all-star, but we've talked a few times now about just angels in general. There's a number of angels in this set that really care about other angels. Screenshot my downloads. I mean, you can if you want to. There's nothing you have to worry about on there. But yeah, it's a 1/3 flyer that gets bigger every time you play an angel, which is fine. If an angel deck is good, that is playing a lot of creatures, probably just want this. Seems pretty reasonable. Pretty darn reasonable. Okay, cool.